Hi there, welcome back. In this video, we are going to be answering some questions on the topics that we have done so far, which are reproduction, both in animals and plants, and especially in plants, which was one of our major focus, and of course, excretion. All right, so the first one says, which of the following statements correctly describes pollination? A, it is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower. That is the exact answer. You need not go over the other the other options rather. Since we know that pollination is transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma, so that is going to be the answer, option A. All right, number 2 says, which part of the flower directly develops into a fruit after fertilization. So the one that develops into a fruit is going to be ovary. You remember that the oval develops into seed. So the answer here is going to be ovary, since oval developed into seed. Number 3 says, which of the following is not a characteristic of wind-pollinated flowers? Wind-pollinated flowers are flowers that don't need to be colorful, since they don't need since it's the wind that pollinates them, so they don't need to be colorful. So since this one is colorful, there's colorful in this option, there's large in this option, large petals, colorful petals. So the answer will be this one is not a characteristic, is not characteristic of characteristic of a wind pollinated flower, but of an insect pollinated flower. Number 4 says, which of the following fruit is an example of multiple fruits? Now, which of these is an example of multiple fruits? The answer is pineapple, because we know a multiple fruit is one that is formed from many ovary and many flowers. Okay, the rest are simple fruits. Now we have which excretory organ is responsible for removing metabolic waste in flatworms? The answer is flame cells. If you remember, I gave you FF, flatworms, flame cells. That's one way you can remember. But of course, we went through this anatomical comparison of the reproductive systems in all of these organisms. Okay, so do well to see that video. I'm going to link it in the description below. All right, the next one says, that's number 5. It says, number 6, which of the following is a major function of the kidney in animals? So what's the major function of the kidney in animal? The major function of the kidney in animal, A says to transport oxygen, B says filtration of blood. Transport of oxygen is the blood, so filtration of blood to remove urea, that is going to be the answer, because the kidney is excretory in function. The function of the kidney is to help in excretion of urea, isn't it? All right, so the answer is going to be urea in this case. Number 7 says, which in plants, oxygen produced during photosynthesis is considered a byproduct. It's considered a byproduct. That's option A. 8 says, which of these best describes a dry dehiscent fruit? A dry dehiscent fruit. A dry dehiscent fruit is a simple fruit that breaks open to release its seed, okay, when it's ripe. So which one describes that feature? So it says, A says a fruit that splits open to release seed. That's going to be the answer. But let's see if it talks about dry. A fleshy fruit, no. A fruit that does not open at maturity, no. A fruit which with one seed only. Okay, the answer is A, a fruit that splits open to release its seed. Which of these is an advantage of cross-pollination over self-pollination? That is advantage of allogamy over autogamy. A, faster germination of seeds, no. Greater genetic variation, exactly, because of crossing, isn't it? So since it's across the same species but different organisms, that's going to what? It's going to lead to greater diversity, greater variation. So, and that can be an advantage. That can be a major advantage. The next one is which of the following explains, that's number 10, explains why plants carry out excretion. A, to store glucose for future use. No. B, to remove harmful metabolic waste. Okay, that makes sense. To remove harmful metabolic waste. C, to digest food using enzymes. No, that is not a reason why they will carry out excretion. To absorb mineral from the soil. Still no, that is not the purpose of excretion. So the answer is going to be to remove harmful metabolic waste. Okay, the next one, number 11, which structure in an insect pollinated flower attracts the pollinator? So which structure in an insect pollinated flower attracts a pollinator? Which structure? That is going to be A, oval, B, petal, C, anther. The answer is going to be what? The petal. Because the petal, remember in this option, in this question 3, it says one of these is not characteristic of wind pollinated flower, and I said it is large petals, because large petals is characteristic of insect pollinated flower, because it provides a space for the insects to land. Is that okay? So that is why it is characteristic of insect pollinated flower. Okay, the next one. The next question, number 12. Which of the following fruits is formed without fertilization? When a fruit is formed without fertilization, it means it has a virgin birth. And the word virgin is has a Greek word Parthenos, as the Greek word Parthenos. So Parthenos here means virgin. So the answer is going to be parthenocarpic banana. Okay. The next one, the correct sequence of events in sexual reproduction is pollination, fertilization, fruit formation. So that is actually the answer. Option A is the answer, because that's the sequence of events in plants. Pollination first, then fertilization of the egg cell and the nucleus and the sperm nucleus, and then fruit formation by the ovary. Okay, so that's option A. Number 14 says, which of the following statements about Malpighian tubule is true? They are found in earthworms. No, they are actually found in insects. They help in water absorption. No, they are used for excretion. C says they remove nitrogenous waste in insects. That is correct. Option C is the right answer. The next one says the kidney in invertebrates is functionally similar to what? And this kidney in invertebrate is functionally similar to what? Since it's an excretory organ, so it's going to be similar to the nephridia in invertebrates. Stomata and cortical are on plants, not invertebrates. Spiracles. Spiracles are basically for gaseous exchange. So that's majorly like one of the processes that facilitates respiration. So kidney basically function for excretion. So nephridia also functions for excretion in annelids. Is that okay? So that's going to be the answer. Which of the following is not a method of seed dispersal? Which one is not a method of seed dispersal? Wind, water, insect, explosive mechanism. The answer is insect. Insect only help to disperse pollen grain, not seed. Insect don't carry seed about to disperse. So, but wind can cause a fruit to fall, and of course its seed is going to germinate into a new fruit. Which feature is common to all insect pollinated flowers? if it's insect pollinated, then it must have large petals, okay? But sticky pollen, okay, that also makes sense. Dry, smooth pollen, no. Small, scentless petals, no. Feathery stigma, no. So the answer is going to feathery stigma is not for insect pollinated because feathery stigma is for wind pollinated, so that the wind will be able to carry them, so they are weightless. So we say they are feathery. The next one is, which of the following is an aggregate fruit? Aggregate fruit. Which of these is an aggregate fruit? The answer is going to be the strawberry. Strawberry is not a berry. A berry is a type of simple fruit. But unfortunately, those words, some of those fruits we call berries, are actually not berries. So in this case, the answer is going to be strawberry, because strawberry is actually an aggregate fruit, not a simple fruit. Strawberry is aggregate. Okay, now the next one is, what is the main excretory product in birds and reptiles? The main excretory product in birds, the main excretory product in birds and reptiles, that is uric acid. Uric acid. The next one, which statement is correct? You remember in that sequence, in that the sequence that we went through from the hierarchical classification, where we saw the other evolutionary classification rather, where we saw the protozoans, poriferans, coelentrates, platyhelminths. So like in that sequence, we saw that most of them are ammonotelic, that is, they excrete ammonia. So from the other sequence of vertebrates, we now have param, that is Pisces, amphibians, reptiles. So these guys are these guys they are they excrete ammonia as well. Is that okay? They excrete ammonia and a little bit of uric acid, but it is mainly the reptiles and the aves that excrete uric acid. Then mammals excrete urea. Okay. Now, which statement is correct about fertilization in animals? It always occurs outside the body? No. It does not involve gametes? No. In fact, it involves gametes. And in fact, it almost always takes place inside the internally. Okay, except in some fish and aquatic organisms. It leads to the formation of zygote. That is very correct. So that's the answer. A zygote is formed when there is fusion of sperm and egg. Now in flatworms, excretion occurs through structures called, flame cells. We've done that before. Which of these is a simple fleshy fruit with one seed? Simple fleshy fruit with one seed. Okay, that is, if it's one seed, that's going to be a berry. That's going to be a berry. No, sorry, one seed, that's going to be a drupe. Berry is many seeded. Berry have many seed, and that's what differentiates berry from drupe. One seed, many seed. Is that okay? Like orange, tomatoes, cucumber, watermelon. But drupe, coconut, mango, all of these guys, they are one seeded. But the difference is, now, you see, I mentioned these two now, coconut and mango, as under drupe. But it says fleshy. So which one is fleshy? This one is fibrous. So mango is going to be the answer. Mango is fleshy. Which of the following is not a product of excretion in plants? Which one is not a product of excretion in plants? A, alkaloids is a product of excretion. Oxygen, water vapor, glucose. Glucose is not excreted, so in fact it's produced in plants. So that is the answer, D. Which statement about cross-pollination is false? That is, which of these is not true of cross-pollination? Which of these is not true about cross-pollination? Okay. It increases variability. That is true. It depends on external agents. That is true. It always leads to parthenocopy. That is false. It doesn't always lead to parthenocarpy. Parthenocarpy is when the fruit arises without fertilization. So for cross pollination, when cross pollination occurs, there must be fertilization at the end of the day. So it's not always leading to parthenocarpy. So that's the answer. C. Which structure holds the pollen grains in a flower? And that's going to be the answer because it's the male reproductive structure, anther. So it holds the pollen grain, okay? And the filament holds the anther or anchors the anther. The style keeps the stigma in place or holds the stigma in place, okay? In ferns and mosses, excretion is mainly a special, through specialized organs, leaf pores and diffusion, kidney-like structures, contractile vacuoles. The answer is going to be leaf pores and diffusion. Okay, leaf pores and diffusion. Which is not the function of the ovary in a flower? Which one is not a function of ovary in a flower? Producing ovules, developing into the fruit, receiving pollen grains, and supporting the style. It is now the ovary supports the style, so which one is not a function? Now, what the one that receives pollen grain is not the ovary. What receives pollen grain is the stigma. Is that okay? So the answer is C, option C, not 27, option C. Then 28, what is the role of the pericarp in fruit structure? What is the role of pericarp? Contains the seed, it is the outer covering of the ovule, it develops from the ovary wall, it produces the pollen tube. Okay, option D is wrong. It says, what is the role of the pericarp? It contains the seed. Okay, that is the answer. Protective function. It houses the seed. Because if you say it is the outer, of course, it is the outer, no, it is not the outer cover of the ovule, but it develops from the ovary wall, yes. But that's not a role, that's not a function. The function is it contains the seed for protective, for protection of the seed. The nitrogenous waste excreted by freshwater fish is, so remember I said that the nitrogenous waste, in that sequence I gave you just now, param, we said the Pisces, they are ammonotelic, that is they excrete ammonia. That is the Pisces excrete ammonia, so freshwater fish will excrete ammonia. B. Which part of the plant stores waste products like tannins and alkaloids? Tannins and alkaloids are excreted, right? So that's going to be the back then. Tannins and alkaloids is going to be the back for excretion, That's why when the back dries off, it can peel off, and it peels off with the product, the tannins and the alkaloids. Which of these features best describes animal reproduction? A, the production of seeds. Animal reproduction, no. Fusion of gametes during fertilization, that's the answer. B. In flowering plants, the ovule develop into seed. We've mentioned that, option C. Number 33, which of the following statements is true about seed dispersal? It promotes overcrowding, no. It reduces competition among seedlings. It ensures fertilization. It discourages reproduction. Which is true about seed dispersal? It promotes overcrowding, no. It reduces competition among seedlings, no. It ensures fertilization. It discourages reproduction. Does it discourage reproduction? No. It's seed dispersal. The best bet there is going to be it ensures fertilization. The next one, which of the following is not a way by which pollination can occur? By bees, by gravity. Yeah, it's by gravity, that's the answer. Pollination is not a way by which pollination occurs. Which of these is an advantage of self-pollination? Produces strong hybrid offsprings. Self-pollination, no. Maintains parent traits, is an advantage. Encourages variation, no. Increase genetic diversity, no. So the answer is maintains parent traits. In which part of the flower does fertilization take place? Of course, we know in the ovary. What happens to the sepals after fertilization? They develop into seed, they turn into a barrel, they may wither or remain. The answer is wither or remain. Option C, they may wither or remain. The stigma of the flower functions to do what? The answer is trap and hold pollen. That was what I said. It traps and holds the pollen, the stigma. Which of the following organisms use nephridia for excretion? Nephridia, earthworms, annelids. Which of these is not an excretory product in animals? Is not an excretory product in animals. Glucose, we do excrete glucose. We excrete urea, sweat, and carbon dioxide. Alright, see you in the next video. God bless you.